And senior officers failed to protect children in Rotherham from grooming gang abuse, the police watchdog has confirmed for the first time. The Independent Police Office for Police Conduct have released a fresh summary into Operation Amazon, an investigation into South Yorkshire Police's response to the allegations of sexual abuse of children between 1999 and 2011.
Now, the new summary, which is informed by representations from individuals like Jayne Senior and Angie Heel, found that senior officers failed in their duties. But despite these findings, there will be no misconduct investigations because the watchdog concluded that there was a systematic organisational failure as opposed to the failings of individuals. Well, joining us now to discuss this is Jayne Senior, youth worker and whistleblower who worked to expose the Rotherham scandal. Jayne, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Charlie, Olivia. Morning.
Now, Jayne, obviously this report, it's a summary and 5 pages have come out. It details intelligence sharing errors. What sort of failures were you reporting when you made this complaint?
I think just to put it into context, Charlie, if we go back to after Alexis J and Louise Casey's reports came out into Rotherham, I was working very closely with the IOPC, doing lots of statements and sharing lots of information around junior officers that they felt had failed in their role. And one of the things that became very apparent at that very early stage in 2016 is that nobody was asking any questions about any senior cops at all. And I know that I've sent reports, I'd sent intelligence, I'd attended meetings, and we know that Angie Hill herself sent 3 reports in 2002, 4 and 6, I believe. So in 2018, I just made the decision that these people had to be held to account. We knew that they knew, we just couldn't prove that they knew. So I put a complaint in following the channels that you would follow to the PSD, and immediately that complaint was turned down. I was told, which I found quite shocking, that members of the public cannot complain about senior police officers.
Now, Jayne, as you progressed your complaint into this allegation of senior officers failing, we now know it's chief superintendent and above. Now, there are no names in Operation Amazon, and they've said that because no one's named, no one's going to be held for misconduct or face any legal investigation. But you reckon those people, they know who they are?
Absolutely, they know who they are, yes. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, even though yesterday was a bit of good news that, you know, actually for the first time ever, something's been upheld against senior police officers, we now need to kind of fight and continue that them officers need naming. I really hope that as part of the national inquiry that actually we may get to a stage where some of these officers will be called to give evidence.
And it is a big victory for you, and real congratulations for that, really pushing away over a number of years. But I did find it very strange in this summary, the way it talks about systemic failings, but then refuses to mention a single officer. The systemic failings just means the individual failings of multiple people. Is there a chance that some people will be named further down the line? Will people be feeling nervous now?
I hope they are, Olivia, I really do. And I do believe at some stage they will be named, because I think, you know, the victims, the families, the survivors and the people of Rotherham need to know that information, and I think it's important that it's out there, you know, and it's public and part of a public inquiry.
Now, Jayne, this complaint, your complaint, Operation Amazon, formed part of the wider Operation Linden by the police watchdog into failings by officers, which ran all the way up to 2022. When they published this originally, they left out any reference to senior officers. Talking about the battle you've had for the last 3 years to get this information into the public domain, have you faced a lot of resistance against the idea that senior officers should be held to account here?
Yeah, absolutely, Charlie. It's been a nightmare, and I think we have had a few conversations about it. But you know what you have to remember is when they published Operation Linden, the first thing that became very apparent to myself and to Angie Heel is they'd buried Amazon within it. So on page 112 of Linden, there is a slight mention of another investigation. they'd not put the word senior officers in, and they'd not named Amazon. So they have continued to say, we're not going to rewrite this report, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that, because it is in Linden. Well, actually it isn't. It's buried. They buried a report into senior officers rather than publicly even use the word senior.
Of course, the most important thing is that this never happens again, and that should be the police's priority now. Do you think there's a risk without naming these officers, there is no sort of punishment for them, and then you run the risk of no sort of public humiliation? You do run the risk of something similar happening again, as we've seen throughout the country.
I think absolutely, Olivia, when you kind of just look at Rotherham and Rotherham alone, and at South Yorkshire Police, you know, we've had Hargreaves, we've had Hillsborough, we've had the child abuse scandal, we've not had one single senior officer that's been held culpable, responsible for anything, you know, and we've now got a duty of candour that's going to be coming out, and I just think, how can we sit and we have to have a law where people are compelled to tell the truth? These people are in high-powered, high-paid, responsible positions. Should they not be just made to tell the truth? You know, should they be facing criminal actions? You know, should we be putting some of these senior officers on a stand and asking them the very, very difficult questions and putting in front of them the evidence that we know is available?
Jayne, we know that as part of your efforts to get this information into the public domain, you had some support from the South Yorkshire Mayor, Oliver Coppard, who's going to come on the programme in the next hour. Now, what sort of pressure did he apply to the IOPC, and do you think that helped change the tide and force them into releasing more information?
Yeah, I 100% do, Charlie, because I kind of believe that if we'd have not got Oliver Coppard and some of his staff involved, we'd have been still sat here in another 7 years talking about Operation Amazon. I mean, you have to remember, I've been told that if I was a vexatious complainant, I could be looking at going to prison. If I put the report out in the public domain, these senior officers would sue me. I could never name them. So we've gone through that, and then Oliver Coppard just kind of said, enough, stop. And he put the pressure on, you know, from meeting him, I believe, in March. What's took us 7 years to try and battle, we've kind of turned around in 6 months. Is it great that the reports come out? Yes, it is. Does it go far enough? No, it absolutely doesn't. But I do think it's a step in the right direction, but I don't think we've finished yet.
OK, Jayne Senior, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Saturday Morning Live, and congratulations that your complaint is finally out in the public domain.
Well, a spokesperson for South Yorkshire Police said Operation Amazon was one of 93 strands of Operation Linden, the outcome of which was published in 2022. At the time, SYP accepted the vast majority of the Operation Linden findings, but disagreed with the decision to uphold the Operation Amazon complaint on the basis that the finding did not name any officers who had failed in their statutory duty.
The force acknowledges and respects the IOPC's decision. South Yorkshire Police has accepted and apologised for the failure to safeguard vulnerable young people in Rotherham against CSE in the 1990s and 2000s. We remain committed to ensuring that the organisation and officers of today are the best they can be at preventing harm. Well, remarkable woman, Jayne Senior, and the struggles that she faced to get that out, the accusations of vexatious complaints, well documented. I highly recommend that people go and look away at some of what she said elsewhere, and we're very lucky to have people like her, I think.
Absolutely. 7-year struggle, and as she says now, at least there is a step in the right direction.